I'm not creative enough for an intro. Anyway, so we'll wait for a few minutes here for people to join us. In the meantime, no advertisements. We're not into shamelessly publicizing anything about our team or we don't want the Ghost Hunter
Right?
fans to think that we're those kind of people because we would never ever do that to
Right.
Steve.
He did say this
That's
was going to be painless, didn't he, Steve?
All
I
right.
feel the needles going in.
He's like, seems like my internet is already going wonky on me. I think I might have a bad connection any minute. All right, here we go. How's everybody doing? Good evening, everyone. As promised, I don't know if you believe me or not, but there he is. Steve Gonsalves from Ghost Hunters. Though sometimes they don't believe me because I tend to lie every now and then.
Isn't it like on Star
but
Trek?
not
Isn't
this
he
time.
like that? What do they do where they go into that room with the holograms? He's a hologram, right?
Oh, yes. Just imagine that and just
That would be good.
gone.
All right, Steve, thank you so much. Let me, you guys who don't know, you got to know who he is. He's from Ghost Hunters. He's been on Ghost Hunters since he was 12, I think. They've been on for a really, really long time. Steve is a genuine good guy. As far as our interaction with Steve has been the expo. He's been with us and the expo for probably 3 or 4 years now at least.
Oh God, yeah.
And Steve is just a good guy, stand-up guy, great to his fans. I always know it's going to be a good expo when Steve is there and he gives me a hug. How you doing? Bam. It feels like the expo.
Yeah.
You know?
Goodness. Thanks, John. It's very nice of you. Thank you.
So let's get into the paranormal stuff. That's why we're here, Steve. All right?
Yeah.
Yep. Let's go back to the beginning, like we do with all of these interviews. This is to kind of find out more about, where you started, what your beliefs are. We're going to kind of deep dive like we like to do with people that do this with us. First, let's start out like your beliefs as far as before you got into the paranormal. Were you raised to believe that spirits were real? They weren't real? Did you have any idea or any thought about spirits at all when you were before getting on the show?
Yeah, for sure. Taps, we were a team long before the TV show. I met Jason, I think, when I was 19 years old,
Wow.
maybe even a little bit younger, quite honestly. We would talk on the computer, and then I started my own team. But my interest, goes back, I want to say to, maybe I was 5 or 6 years old and investigating and going around and, well, not going around, but getting not investigating, but excuse me, but getting that interest.
There's a show.
Imagine
5-year-olds
that,
out there
little
investigating.
5-year-old.
I'd watch that.
But my interest, did start back then. I was very curious, but it was really with the movie The Entity. And I was a little scared of it. And then I remember my mom saying, "It's make believe. It's for movies. Why are you even watching that?" And then I saw at the end, based on true, because the credits started coming up, and I was like, "You lied to me." And then that's when I started, really. And I must have say I was probably 6 when I saw that.
Wow.
Yeah, that. But of course, my deeper interest, I want to say maybe around 11 and 12, or 11 or 12, I was reading like books from Lloyd Auerbach and Auerbach, excuse me, and it went from there. Yeah, but gosh, long before the show, for sure.
You know what's funny, real quick? I have a similar experience, but it wasn't to do with the paranormal. When I was a kid, the real quick story, we had a house fire. We were staying with friends. I had to sleep on a cot. And in the living room, my mom and her friend who we were staying with were watching HBO at night. And I was supposed to be asleep, but I'm watching. And there was this movie on called The Town That Dreaded Sundown, where the serial killer was killing people. Like he had a hood over his head. And I'm watching it. And my mom had always told me horror movies are make believe. And it got to the end and it said, based on a true story. I couldn't sleep forever after that, because I'm like, that there are people that do that. But anyway, sorry to get sidetracked. So
Please,
do you come from a like as far as religion? What's your background as far as that? Were you raised Catholic?
Yeah, Roman Catholic. Yep.
Strict?
Raised in, and
Were you a churchgoer? Were you going when you were
no,
young? Communion, confirmation, all that stuff.
yep, yeah. Went through all of that, and almost got into teaching it at one point. Strange little
Wow.
side. Yeah, very strange. But there was a woman who took a liking to me, and a a way of like, your head is in a a place where maybe you could pass this along, but it never went that route. And now my belief is still there for sure, but I'm not a churchgoer or anything like that.
I was just curious because I wasn't raised in that way, so my beliefs in the paranormal weren't due to any experiences or anything. And I don't think, from what you said, yours weren't really based on anything that happened to you, right, when you were younger.
No, not when I was younger. No, there was something that did happen when I was younger, looking back, but it wasn't to me. But I didn't start having any real experiences until I was, actively sort of searching it out in my late teenage years. I would say it took quite some time for me. As you know, it doesn't always happen quickly. It
No.
might not ever happen at all. Some people. I know some investigators. Excuse me. I know some investigators are still, waiting for that big experience, that sort of, not to say they're disbelievers because they're still,
They're
on that
searching. They just
search
haven't
that.
had that experience that they want.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So,
Yeah.
so you said at 19 you had your own paranormal team, or you were part of a team.
At night, I had my own team. Yeah.
What was
Well,
that
I
team's
had just
name?
started. New England Paranormal was
So,
the
so something normal. Hey, New Jersey paranormal. Look at that.
always. Yeah.
I'm
See
a little
that
bit
it was
older than
called New
19.
England. Yeah. In early Ghost Hunters days, there was a guy named Mike Dion who would come in and out, and he was actually from my team because when I first started working with TAPS, we were just sort of like we started this family group. There's the TAPS family, and my
Okay.
team I think was maybe the first, maybe the second when that sort of start. Actually, I think we were. It doesn't matter, but when that network first started. But then I went, we just said, hey, let's do this as a full force. So then I joined the gang, and
So,
yeah.
so in the early days there, what were you actively doing? Were you working on private cases or?
Yeah, we were doing private residences. We were doing some larger places for sure, but we did a lot of residential cases, people that actually needed help, and um, yeah, that was mostly our focus.
Anything you remember from back then that was kind of like, oh my god, this is like really kind of either like movie-ish or like scary, or like any severe cases that kind of come to mind where you go, holy crap, this is really
Something that stuck
the
with you.
thing, real.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've seen things move that doesn't quite make sense. You're like, how is this happening? We come across things where your brain tells you, hey, this isn't possible, and you don't know what to do, and you get all those different emotions. Of course, you're frightened and startled, but more so excited, and like I tell people, it's sort of a little more like poltergeist than it is the entity, and the way that when the investigators in that movie come across something paranormal, they look at it in reverence. They're like, oh my gosh, look at what I'm seeing. It isn't until they become monstrous, that they're like, oh.
Yeah.
But when they're
You
but
remind me
when
of the
it's
scene from Ghostbusters where they're down in the library and they're looking at the,
yeah,
you know.
that's where I get my inspiration from. But yeah, it's very much like that. When something happens, it's you get scared and startled for sure, but you look at it, with reverence, and you're like, oh. There are times, of course, when you do get scared, and we've been like, what do we do? Should we get out of here? Should we stay? Of course, you always stay, but sometimes
I
there are
don't.
those moments. Yeah.
I run.
She really doesn't. She
I run.
fight or flight. There's a
Yeah.
lot of that. People are mentioning about you being a police officer. How many years were you actively a police officer?
5 years, 4 years,
Really, that
five,
long?
Wow.
5 years. Yeah.
Wow.
Did you
Very
enjoy
early
it?
20s. Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
Now I'm going
It
to
was
ask a
great.
strange question. Did you ever have a situation where there was an experience of maybe something paranormal on a call?
No, no, nothing that I ever thought. There were times when people have called and,
Oh,
uh,
that had to be fun.
and they would be like, "Hey, there are things happening in my house, but I can't find anybody. Like, who should I call? I don't think it's a person in my house," that sort of thing. But of course, the police is always like, "Wrong place, lady," or
Yeah.
prank
And,
call.
and, and Steve was like, I have a twin. I'll give you his number. You call him. He'll be back later. It's not me though. It's my
Yeah.
twin.
Oh God.
So those early days when
Mhm.
when you have your own group, how many people were in that particular team?
12, 12,
12. That
15.
many.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, at times, not always on every case, of course. Some people couldn't make it, or some people,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. But yeah, there was about 12 of us. I still talk to a few of them, of course, and yeah,
So
it was super fun having that. But we
so
would do
you're working as a police officer, and then you're doing this what, on the weekends or at night or?
weekends, weekdays if it called for it, if we could, but usually weekends. That's usually when, especially if you're doing residential cases, that's likely when a family is like, okay, you can have my house
Right.
until 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
But uh, a residential case too back then, or even now, can last months. The
Yeah.
average case for us was maybe 2 months to a year or two. Sometimes it takes a long time, but that could have been because it's mostly weekends, that sort of thing. It's
Right.
dragged out a little bit more. Not sure, but the timeline, is definitely a
Yeah,
little bit
people,
longer
again,
when
you
you're.
guys are sort of to blame for this. People kind of believe that you go in and it's settled in 3 days, and it's like, hey, live with your spirit, and call us if you need us and take care. But in a
Yeah,
lot of cases in the private sector,
It's
it does
continuous
take,
work.
yeah.
It just doesn't stop just because you go in one time or two times or three times. It's a process.
absolutely. And on Ghost Hunters, we definitely try uh, our best to get the answers that are going to help people the most, whether it's history that sort of changes their mind a bit and makes them see things a little more different, or if it really is something paranormal, and sort of giving them the tools that they need to uh, work their way through that. And I think we do a pretty good job a few
Yeah.
times, honestly, and especially with residential cases, there have been times where we've said, Jason, myself, Tango, Sherry, and hey, we can't leave. You know, this family really needs help, and
Yeah.
10 days or however long a week isn't long enough. We need to stay. That has happened, and quite honestly, we always get a. They've always said yes. They've always been, and for a network or a production company to reroute a schedule of X amount of
Yeah.
months because you want to spend a couple of weeks or extra week at a place is not an easy thing,
No, no.
logistically or financially for them. But they've never been like, nope, we're out of here. They've always been like, all right, do what you need to do. It hasn't happened often, but
But it
Well,
also
it
speaks
has
highly
happened.
of you guys as a team that you feel responsible and connected to the people that you're there to help.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
but that's a good
Absolutely.
question though, because
That's
again, from my own personal perspective, has there ever been a backup plan where after you guys are doing what you're doing, and let's say for whatever reason they do call back or an issue remains, is the TAPS team available to then go and assist these people?
absolutely. Yeah. And
Yeah.
this is
See, I
something
always
that,
thought that.
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And this is something that, Jay set up in the very beginning of doing the show, was whenever we do a case, we always have to have some sort of aftercare, in place. uh, and that was usually if it's in New England, of course, the TAPS home team. There's a TAPS home team where uh, they aren't televised. You know, they're just a team. That's where Cody came from. That
Right.
came from, like, it birthed him. But
We made him in the lab in
I
the
kind of
I
like
know.
that
office.
though. I like that though. That's where Cody
Cody's
came
in the
from.
TAPS office. What? Where am I?
The Elvis DNA was in there. They put a lot of stuff in
Goodness.
that kid.
No, but he was a member of the home team, and then he started. I think it was with Ghost Nation. He actually came on a few, and then now he's here once in a while. But yeah, there's a whole home team that, or if we're traveling far, we always connect him with somebody in the TAPS family or a
Okay.
local team that's trusted, or not trusted. They're all trusted, to some, but one that we've worked with that we know that they aren't going to do a little more damage than good.
I got to, Steve, I don't know if you remember this. I tell this story all the time. This is before the Expo. The first time I ever met you, and you probably don't remember, you were doing an event with Bruce Tango and I think Dave in our area and in Jersey. And you were going to a Dunkin' Donuts in Clark, and I actually lived in Clark. And I pull into my parking spot and I look over and I'm on the phone and I'm like, I think that's Steve Gonsalves right next to me.
Yeah, he was talking to me.
And yeah, I was talking to her, and she's like, "What?" I'm like, "It's Steve from Ghost Hunters." You got out. I'm like, "I gotta go. I'm gonna get behind him in line." I'm literally like, it was like Cable Guy. I'm literally like staring at you, like, "That's him. That's him." And you were really nice because I didn't think I would ever kind of meet you again, or we would ever have a convention. I literally asked you every question imaginable while you were waiting for your drink in that line, and you just were like real nice to me or whatever. I did hear your tires peel out when you left, but I got what I needed out of that interaction.
Mine here.
I'm glad you weren't still carrying your taser or your gun, or I probably would have been in
So
bad
somebody
trouble.
did ask, what was scarier for you? Is it being an officer doing police work or ghost hunting?
Oh, being a police officer, come on.
Police work for sure.
Oh yeah.
There's, luckily where I was working, it wasn't the most crime-ridden town,
Right.
but we did have our fair share of, and we always rode with a partner. Actually, it's not true. There's a few times I did ride solo, but yeah. But police work for sure because people can actually hurt you. A ghost, something paranormal. Sure, it could happen in some roundabout way. Something hits you, not literally hits you, but maybe a door hits you and it slams. There are ways where people have gotten hurt, but it's not like. But a person, during police work, they're gonna,
Yeah, people are unpredictable.
yeah.
Well, I got a question here. I don't know if again we want to get into this, but they're talking about the early days of Ghost Hunters when it was again we mostly everybody has watched from the early days when Grant was there and Jay was there and you were there and Brian was there and Chris Williams and all they were asking if anything was kind of arranged by the network, like the issues with Brian or anything like that, or was that real issues with? I'm just asking because people are wondering TV and reality.
Not with that. No, there's none of. Luckily, none of that stuff at all. I don't want to talk about somebody when they're
right.
Here,
but it wasn't created by the network. There was real issues.
No, they're the people who don't work with us anymore.
Right.
Yeah, no, there's no.
Right. So it wasn't created by the network. Let's just leave that there.
No.
What?
I kind of wish because I haven't talked to Brian in 10 years, maybe. But he would probably be a much different person and have a much better life if.
I'm sure. So, what is one of your most memorable show or non-show experiences as far as have you seen full body apparitions? Have you seen things flying across the room? Have you experienced all of that? Because they never really go into that on the show anyway.
I'm sorry, it got a little.
The full body apparitions.
Really? Oh gosh, excuse me. Yeah. I've never seen a ghost, as people would say, that glowing visage of a person, and then it is there. Uh, do I think it exists? I do. I've seen it through gadgetry, but that's always a little bit too late. That's always
Right.
after the fact, or it's thermal.
Right.
Um, so I've seen things that make me know it exists. I've seen other things. I have seen humanoid figures moving. I
Okay.
have seen shadow-like figures. Absolutely. But have I seen a ghost in that sense?
Really, all these years you've never seen a
Don't.
full body apparition? Never.
But I like the fact that's not
No,
that
no.
common.
I've seen two. To be honest, I'm being completely honest with you.
That's not the norm.
Two, and one was in a building I never expected to see anything like that. And I'm a skeptic, and to see it was a girl, and we were in what used to be an all boys school, and she just ran up the stairs, and I was like, talk about like holy crap moment. It was like, what? Like you want to play it back in your brain, but you can't. But it was like, wow, you know, crazy.
Yep. It's I believe it to be real for sure. I hope to experience it. I've seen things that have made me believe that the paranormal is real for
Yeah.
sure. Uh, but not that, you know, have I seen ghosts? Maybe, but not. I think what people would say is
Right.
that,
Right.
The
not yet.
Hollywood term
The
of what a
hall,
spirit or a
yes,
ghost is.
and
What
that
What are
might
your?
very well.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
You said that. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I was
That
just gonna
may very
say
well.
that might very well exist. A lot of people who investigate this field see them quite often. And even
And you've
people
been
who
in some of
don't
the
see them.
craziest places that are out there pretty much. I mean,
Yeah.
you think you'd
Oh
have a
yeah.
better chance than any. What are your thoughts on, again, from a religious standpoint or not? Do you believe in demons? Do you believe that demons exist and people can be demons can
Affected
exist
by?
within buildings or demonic possession and things of that nature?
I, you know, I do. I do. I don't know if they are the sense that they are truly from that religious standpoint.
Right.
But I will say, when I've been on investigations where there have been some very dark things, and I have seen the power of, what you may call God, Christ, whatever,
Really?
do its thing. Oh yeah, absolutely. Whether it is that religious or if it's just something else, it could be an energy that has nothing to do with who really knows. There may be
But that's the thing.
a few people that do know, but I'm not one of them. I have experienced things that I think people would consider demonic. Especially uh, on some cases where we've dealt with uh, people who have been involved with the occult and that sort of thing. But we always call clergy and whatever that we need to handle those things. We've been able to do it ourselves a few times, but yeah, that it actually happened on. It was either Ghost Nation or Ghost Hunters, but and, in the television world, a lot of the camera operators, that sort of thing, they're documenting a show. They may or may not believe in the paranormal, that sort of thing, or even religion. That's especially nowadays questionable to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And we were dealing with something that we believed could be best handled, and we did call in uh, somebody, and he went into the house, Reverend Billy Bean, and I think, yeah, well, yeah, and he and I don't really know how to explain it other than the house had a certain feel to it. It felt, I don't know, it just, I don't even know how to explain it other than you feel like you're walking through cottage cheese or something while you're in
It's
it's just a
dense.
weird,
There's a
it just feel,
density in the air.
and everybody's moods were kind of like, "Ooh, so, I don't know." And after that, even a lot of the crew guys were like, "What happened? What is going on?" it literally felt like a tornado went through that place of like fresh air and all of this stuff, and everybody was happy and chipper like in this crazy haunted house. Um, and even they were like, "What could that really? And is it really the power of a religious, or what he is able to do?" I don't think we can say for certain. Is it just the way he does it that something that's in the house is like, whoa, I need to get out of here. Maybe that's it too. It could be a
Yeah.
lot of different things. I'm not really sure, but I have seen it, and not just that one time. I have seen it work quite a few times. But that was one
But
time
isn't
specifically when people who may not have quite believed in that sort of thing were like, oh gosh, this is different. They're like, happy and giddy and like,
wow.
before that, they're all like, should we even be in here? This place is like, they're all like, tense and on edge. But
I mean, isn't that the thing though? Like you said, because I don't come from a strong religious background, it's hard for me to believe one or the demonic or the other way, where you can do the cleansings and the blessings and all that, and it'll change anything. But we don't know. You're 100% right when you say that, because um, it it's such a strange thing when you're dealing with the public and things that are happening in their home, and they live there, and we don't. And the side that you just brought up that no one really kind of sees behind what the TAPS team and the TV Ghost Hunter team is, that you guys, you just mentioned the priest coming in and doing blessings. Is that something that, again, you've taken part in and had brought people in through your team or TAPS, where you've had someone do a blessing or anything
Cleansing.
oh
cleansing
goodness,
to?
oh yes, all the time. Yeah. As a matter of fact, when I had my own team, New England Paranormal, uh, Keith Johnson, a great guy. If you remember early episodes of Ghost Hunters, he was one person I would call to come in and
Wow.
do that. And that was before I had joined TAPS completely. I was sort of, we would train people together and get together, that sort of thing. But yeah, and on the other side, his brother was actually a demonologist, so together they packed quite a punch. They could
I
take
can
Wow.
care of
imagine.
both. Yeah, one guy was a clergy, and the other guy was knew much more about the other uh, side of things. Both great dude, but Keith was somebody I admire quite a bit and learned a lot from. Especially in my late teenage years or early 20s. But yeah, we've had our hands in all of that stuff for sure.
What about the cases? Because we've come across this a lot. We talk to John Zaffis when he's on here a lot about this kind of thing as well. You guys were famous for kind of saying not everything is paranormal. The debunk term, I believe, came from Ghost Hunters or early days, where you guys specifically looked for things, the vacuum effect,
The
with
logical
doors
normal
opening and
explanation.
closing, noises. What about when it's not paranormal and yet there's another issue? How does the TAPS team, or you, or how do you handle that if there's nothing paranormal here, but there's something going on beyond? You know what I'm saying? Mental issues
Of
or
course, yeah.
those type of things.
It very well could be. Even in early cases, um, there was a case where we found that a woman was having some really traumatic episodes, paranormal episodes, and she was seeing people, there in her living room, and she thought they were going to attack her, that sort of thing. And I believe it was Jay who actually found that she was taking a few medications uh, together that she wasn't supposed to be taking, and it was making her
Ouch.
hallucinate and see things that weren't there. Um, and once you explain that to people, once people are able to make that switch in their head and understand what you're saying, they usually go, "Oh, maybe it isn't paranormal." We just always thought that if we're fooling ourselves, it doesn't do anybody any good.
Right.
It doesn't do us any good. I mean, it does, because we'll get excited and happy that we found something, but it doesn't do the case any good. Doesn't do the people
Right.
we're And Jay was one of those people. Even Grant, were one of those investigators who, pushed me to push myself at times. Like, oh, we should go back up there tomorrow and see in the daylight if it's this or that, or we should, hey, when I'm ready to say it's, oh, that door slammed, um, so, and that was all before the show, but we did always try to disprove things before. You have to be careful because disproving, we threw around the word debunk, and everybody does. We kind of use them interchangeably, but
Right.
debunk it usually means that there is an intention of fraud there, and it's not
Or
always
it just
that,
means that there's a logical explanation for it. I mean,
Sure.
honestly.
Well, that would be disproving. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right,
That's
right.
just you just have to be, yeah. But we
So
did. We
here,
tried to get to the bottom of everything.
here's the question I got to ask you, Steve, because I've I've seen you in different areas, and you kind of do have an interest, and you referenced equipment before. You I could I've seen you have an interest in different types of equipment. You know people that we know, and Jay, of course, it must be Jay. This kind of Ghost Hunters is kind of structured as far as equipment that they use and their methodology of, and they kind of have been kind of throughout. Do you like using equipment when you do things, ever do it on your own or aside from the TV show?
Oh yeah, for sure. We all have equipment that we use and don't use, and all the equipment you see on the show, like we usually all put our heads together. We go back and forth, and on phone calls and emails and texts, and uh, we have people build stuff for us, and
Right.
we all get it, and it's like Christmas for us. We all go through
I could
everything,
imagine.
uh, yeah, and together we sort of uh, test it off camera, but we'll test it for maybe a year sometimes,
Okay.
and see if it, and then we'll start using it. But if there's any piece of equipment that somebody doesn't like, if Jay was like, or if I
Hmm.
was like, or even Tango, Sherry, and
You just take
anybody,
it out of
if
play.
they're like, right, or maybe we just don't use it, that
Right.
doesn't
Yep.
mean that nobody can use it, but
Right.
we've tried everything that's out there for sure.
Okay.
But we tend to, until the technology reaches a point where it's a little more fail safe, I think we tend
Yeah.
to use certain things that we have, good results with, and
Yeah.
things that, using our lidar has been fantastic, and that's a newer device that we've only had for a few years, and that thing is awesome. We see things moving in the environment, and they'll go corroborate it with other instruments, and then getting evidence surrounding it. And one time Tango and I saw something on the lidar, uh, rush us, and we felt the concussive force of it as
Oh
well.
wow.
But
That's
we
cool.
first saw it on the lidar. We're like, whoa! We jumped back, and then we felt like that. Whoa! It was like that was crazy. That was awesome. But yeah, we do use a lot of new equipment.
Okay.
Every, like, I don't want to say every season, because that's not how we sort of look at things. It's just when things are available. But I want to say every year, every 8 months, every year we have new equipment. We're using new things. Jay loves equipment. He's always, he's even building stuff himself, and he'll. Uh, so we have no shortage of equipment. But I love
Uh,
it all. Laser grids are fantastic. If used properly, of course, and all of those. Yeah, I love it.
Lots of
yeah.
experimentation.
I've just seen you at different places, kind of look at equipment and on tables and stuff, and you're inquisitive, and you're, hey, what's that do, and we all know it's pseudoscience. I mean, you can't prove the existence based on equipment, of
But like
course.
what he just said, seeing something on the radar and then all of a sudden
Right.
getting that
That's, yeah,
personal feeling of
that's
something being
validation.
rushed
Yeah,
at you.
double
It's like,
validation there.
holy cow. Talk
Back
about the adrenaline
Absolutely.
pump.
back in the early days, did you ever in your wildest dreams think, when were you involved in the pilot in the first couple of episodes, or no, you were brought on after? Or you were involved from
Yeah.
the
No.
beginning?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I'm in the pilot there, and funny story. and that pilot episode, I had ripped pants, so I think I had Grant's jacket tied around my waist or something like that. Jay had two different shoes on because he had to run out of the house so fast.
That's funny.
And one was like a tie, and one was a slip-on. So like,
Oh,
I don't know
nice.
how he did that, but yeah, no, I was there from that end in episode 1 and all that stuff. But
Did
you know, what's that? I'm sorry.
did you ever in a million years like think
From
in
that
your
to
wildest dreams that how many years later that you're
still going strong?
on TV?
Um, you know, well, when we got approached essentially about doing a show, we had talked about it a few times. You know, Jason, Grant, myself, and other team members. We'd meet at Starbucks, and we were hesitant for I want to say a couple of years. We, all sort of because we had, of course, jobs.
Yeah.
Also, we're clients back then. They didn't necessarily want anybody to know their house was haunted. So how were we going to
Yeah,
bring camera crews? You know,
Uh-huh.
they were back then. They were the sort of the weird people on the block.
yeah,
Raised eyebrow. It's not like it necessarily is today. So we were like, we can't bring, camera crews. These people would never go for it. And we just didn't know. Jay and Grant were plumbers. I was a jeweler and a police officer, and doing, everybody had their own. This was just an awesome hobby that we loved. We were all very passionate about it. But then eventually, um, we did, but we never thought, we never thought it would. We're like, how is this going to be? Because you know how it is, it's a lot of time in the dark, I mean, we do investigate during the day, of course, but it's
right.
always, we try to recreate the conditions in which they had the experiences. And it's not, it's rarely during the day. It's rarely with, it's so, but we do investigate during the day, but in any case, we're just like, how is, it's a lot of, but, uh, we went through the season, and even then we're like, is anybody watch?
Did
Weird, I don't
anybody
know,
watch that? Did anybody care?
But then,
And yet
then
here
all
you
of a
are the
sudden,
standard of measure.
I,
You guys realize that, right? You're the standard
well,
of measure now out in the
No,
field
you
for a
you
lot of
just
people.
mentioned bringing to the mainstream. There, like you said, back before you guys, like you said, it was people weren't really talking openly about their house being quote unquote haunted or believing. They were just they weren't. This is pre-internet, right? Are we going back before the
yeah,
internet?
well, no. It was first aired
I'm
in
I'm really,
biased
I'm
here.
2004.
really dating you guys.
Early internet,
What?
pre-Facebook.
Okay.
You remember that was but yeah, no, that was. I don't think any of us, we would. I remember being in a casino with Jay and Brian, and I think Grant, just walking around, being like, "You think anyone's going to watch this thing? And if they do, they're just going to think we're, you know." But I think a lot of, for the first year, I got everybody that came up to me was like, "I didn't even know people did this." Like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
this is a. But I think one of the reasons it caught on a bit was that it was people, who weren't quite believers in it, uh, would watch us investigate and say, "Oh, I would also maybe think it's the wind or this or that," and then they realized that there's real history to it, and they were coming along for that ride, and then they just loved the adventure of it, and uh,
Curiosity too.
yeah, curiosity, of course. But and then by season 2, it was, you know, we kind of, not that we knew, but we were getting stopped quite often wherever we were,
Oh
that sort
yeah.
of thing. And we're like, oh, this is different.
Especially that
Yeah.
crazy guy at Dunkin'
Yeah, some
Donuts in
crazy people
Clark,
at the
right?
Dunkin' Donuts were
Oh yeah, I remember that
assaulting.
guy. Uh,
What now when the first run ended, were were you all kind of done with it at that point, or was that beyond your control?
yeah, the sci-fi.
Yeah.
Well, that was sort of a byproduct of a few things. Sci-fi was going through a bit of a change there, and they were changing hands. and a few different things were happening. I think I wasn't that. I kind of just said, "Hey, you
Right.
guys handle this," you know. Um, but then also, you know, we sort of decided, okay, let's just, because it was still, there were more seasons to be had,
Oh yeah.
and then I remember Jay and myself, of course, and we are all talking with the production company, saying, "Hey, uh, let's just bow out now and find another home for this." And so, we were doing it straight 15 years, I
Oh
think,
my
something
Dang.
God,
like
that's
that. And
crazy.
it's, so we were all sort of like, okay, this could be a nice, as much as, grateful, of course. You would never be like,
Right.
it's a fantastic, thing we're lucky to be able to be a part of. But um, yeah, it's, but we never lost sight of each other. Of course, we're still investigating, still a team, still hanging out, still all that stuff. Um, yeah,
But
but
during that break, were did you during the break were you guys still actively talking about doing something together again, or was it just like eventually it came up again where hey maybe we want to get back in and do this again, or was the idea always eventually we're going to go back?
well, it was, I think a combination of a few different things. Without speaking out of turn, things I shouldn't necessarily be. But it was mostly, yes, as a package, we're going to find another home for this. And then they did find another home for it, and through whatever things that happened,
It
uh,
worked.
they didn't. So Jason, me, and you know, the team decided to stay together and stick together and do Ghost Nation. Yeah, and that's sort of how
Well,
that
the
came about.
I know that people are commenting on here and stuff. It's the chemistry that you and Dave have is phenomenal, and people are kind of like asking about how the two of you connected. How did that friendship develop? Because it jumps off the screen when you see the two of you together.
Well, Dave, yeah, Dave's great. He's yeah. Um, well, oh, Tango. He's my best friend. I love him.
Yeah.
He really is. People think it's sort of just for television, but no,
Mm-mm.
we're as close as you could imagine. He lives on the West Coast right now, so we're both
Yeah.
really sad about that. And I miss him when I'm not, with him, and
Yep.
that sort of thing. But luckily we get to see each other quite often. But we actually, Dave, you'll see him pop up in season 2. He was part of a team in New Jersey that needed some help, and we went in and helped. And um, all of a sudden, we were all kind of like, "Hey, Jay and everybody was like, what do you think about this? Maybe we should scoop him up. Like he's kind of ready and eager to learn all this stuff. He was super nice to everybody, very humble, and you know, and so we approached him, and he was like, "Yeah, and also, and that sort of thing." And so then he came on the first case with us, and it's not like I was friends with him then. It sort of took a few cases, and a few, but we instantly started,
Yeah.
Laurel and Hardy, we connected on, and even though he's 10 years younger than me, like all of these
Is he
things,
really
like,
that much
yo,
younger?
man.
I didn't realize he was that much younger than you. Really? He's really. I really didn't realize
And he was a
that.
magician. Yeah, he's so we got along great right away, and then just we never separated,
You
from
could
that
tell when
point.
you guys are together, even the few times that we've seen you together, you could tell that it's genuine. And that's another thing that people gravitate to ghost
It's
hunters
real.
is because the chemistry, you could tell it's real.
You're not
Yeah, you
casted. You're
guys
not.
weren't,
You
it
guys are the
wasn't a
real
guy from
deal.
California and a guy from Boston and a guy from Jersey and whatever that they cast it, looked at pictures and said, here's your team, go. it never came
No,
across as that
when you're
ever.
watching the team, you can see that
Yeah.
it's an important team that's tight knit and together. You see it. It's the genuineness of it jumps off the screen when you guys are on. And I think people are
Thank you.
reacting
Yeah,
to
we're
that.
all really close. Yeah, for sure. We're very lucky that people, you know, aren't like these goofs. Get them out of here. You know, because it could be
Do
the
you?
opposite. People could be like,
Yeah.
you know, but uh, it's just how we are, you know. And I really do bet them to do things and go under things and see how much it takes to get them to do crazy stuff. And
Well, we've got Dana on
you
here
know,
that
and
keeps saying,
even
"What's this thing about spiders? That you're
Oh yeah,
afraid of
come on,
spiders?
everybody
That they're
knows
catching
that.
you all the time with the spiders?"
Yeah. He's a big fan. He
yeah,
is.
oh yeah. Have you ever seen them? Ever seen a spider?
Oh, I hate going up
I
to
mean, some are
attics or
beautiful,
basements, man.
but
No, I'm scared of
Attics
spiders
and
yeah,
myself.
basements. I hate going in them because they're just you would have freaked out in the building we were in. Literally, I had to remember the cottage. I had to
Oh
take a
Lord.
broom
Oh
and
Lord.
clear all this.
Oh
It was
Lord.
like the worst horror movie you've ever. It looked like a cotton candy thing. By the time I was done with it, they
He's
hadn't
not
been up there
kidding. It
for
was
years. It
bad.
was
You
an
couldn't
empty
walk
building,
through it.
oh
and yet that was the most active place
yeah,
in the building. Go figure.
oh
But like, yeah,
yeah. That's always the case, you know. Like,
yeah.
yeah, I don't like them. They're terrible. And luckily, you know, Jay is such a good friend, and he'll always, you know, go first for me in those areas, and he'll look out for me. And Tango too, he'll come and kill him for me, and get rid of him. Although he won't kill anything anymore. All of a sudden one day he's like, I can't kill spiders for you anymore.
Yeah.
And I was
Bad
like,
karma, man.
no. He's like, he was just like, never again. So he'll try to catch him now, you know, or just he'll still try to get
Catch
rid
and
of him for him.
release.
But yeah,
So,
everybody's yeah.
do you see yourself doing this for another 15 years if people want to see that?
If they want to see another 15 years, is that
Yeah.
what you're
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
on board for it?
I mean, we'll be investigating that long for sure. If they,
I mean,
you know,
I'll
if they
go
want
for
to
as
keep
long as I
watching it,
can.
it'd be awesome. But eventually, we'll all be, you know, walkers or something. Hey,
It'll all be
no,
VR. We'll be doing it from our
yeah,
living room.
I
Just
know.
like so
I'll be in a
any
bed. Can I
places
zoom in?
so you've been everywhere, of course. Any places like international or stuff that you ever want to go and just check out, like as far as investigating?
Yeah, I would love to go international. You know, I've tried a few times, even uh, before the show. There was a paranormal trip put together that was going to Ireland, and I was like, I was so close to going, but couldn't do it. Um, and then when the team went to Ireland and England for, you know, on Ghost Hunters, uh, you know, I didn't go. But I would
Yeah.
like to. I can get there by ship,
Yeah,
and
you
I'll do
don't
that.
fly, right? You don't like flying, right?
No,
I'm
Oh, is that what it
terrified.
mm-mm.
is?
I'm
Because like
terrified of flying, so I
but
understand.
even Ghost Hunters
I drive.
International, like Ghost Hunter International, you weren't like, hey man, why don't we all go over there? Like no one ever said that, or like everybody had families and stuff, and they were like, we can't be gone for that much time.
Well,
Why
we were
didn't it?
doing Ghost Hunters. We couldn't do.
So was
They
it even
wanted
an
something to
option?
run simultaneous. No, not even an
Oh,
option.
Ah.
Even
oh,
like
I didn't even know that.
when Tango and I did Ghost Hunters Academy, we missed Ghost Hunters. So there'd be a season when we were out of 5 episodes. Um, because honestly, like the sci-fi days of Ghost Hunters, even now, it can be very. But and it's not just us, obviously. Anybody who works in media, I think, or in any sort of any job, honestly. But you know, those early days, there wasn't much time for much. We did get a few weeks off here and there, and obviously Christmas and different holidays.
Yeah.
But it
That,
was pretty back to back, like just going. Yeah.
that's actually a pretty good question, and I think we asked Adam this one too, and I kind of wonder myself because I wouldn't do it, but would you ever hypothetical situation? Okay, and I don't know if your parents are alive or not, or anything like,
Or any family
member. Any family member, if they, hypothetical situation, they lived in a home and they had passed in that home, would you ever consider any way, shape, or form trying to quote unquote investigate or try to reach family members through any methods that you've learned through all these years?
If I thought they were somewhere, maybe, but I don't think I would just wander around like investigating or trying to make contact. But if I thought for whatever reason that they were nearby, maybe, you know, maybe that'd be cool.
Well,
I think anybody, if you lose your mother, your father, your you would maybe want to continue some sort of communication. Maybe they wouldn't. Who knows? Finally, I'm out of there.
yeah, exactly. I did my job.
Maybe
You're on
they
your
keep
own.
hanging up. What?
I'm in the retreat now up in paradise, hopefully.
Right.
No, but that's always the question, because see, I wouldn't do it. My mom passed to COVID when it started, and I never once thought ever of trying through a recorder. I mean, I've gotten signs from my mom. It's just too close, you know what I mean, to even try something like that to me, where I would have no problem doing that in your house or the person who called me, and no issue at all. But that close is, what about like mediums? We never even talked about that, because ghost hunters really don't deal with, at least the show doesn't deal. Does the Taps family or you personally, have you ever worked with mediums, and what are your thoughts on mediums in general?
Oh yeah, for sure. Our clients will do whatever. If they say, "Hey, we want a medium," or we may work that in. But for the most part, it's very hard to present that sort of thing as evidence in a way
Yep.
that
Yep.
is an easy way for people to digest in certain situations. But we have, yeah, we will work with. There are many psychics and mediums I love and trust, uh, and are very, very dear and close friends. And I have worked with many, and I tell you what, there was a time with a psychic on Ghost Hunters where I saw through the thermal camera, what was happening around him as he was, that I've never seen anything
Wow.
like that before. I've had some people, tell me some things, and I've been, I've seen some friends at their galleries where I'm just like, whoa, blows my mind, and it's really, really, really cool to see. But it's not something that we use very often.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of curious about you personally, because it's the same with us. I mean, if someone requests a medium, then we have mediums that we work with, that we trust, that we know, are reputable
Have good
and
intentions.
legit, and have a good reputation, and they've been doing this for years. But I always wondered, for people like you and for the TAPS team, if it ever got to the point where a client is like, great, we listened to everything you had to say, but is there any medium that you work with that you could bring in to talk to us as well?
Sure.
Does the TAP team have that resource?
I think it's just another tool.
Yeah.
Oh, it's interesting to know, because I didn't think
I agree
Jay
100%. Yeah.
Somebody asked a really good question that I really think that should be presented to you. They basically asked, from the time you started this to now, has anything changed on your view about ghosts and spirits, and has anything from what you believe to now changed?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I think it's a lot more fascinating now. Now that I understand things a little more, and I've experienced different things. There are a lot of, one thing that I love is I thought maybe my belief would, sort of dissipate over time, and it has only strengthened. And I saw that, the deeper that I dig into, say, science and things like that, I thought would dispel some of my belief, but it honestly has strengthened it as well.
Yeah.
Whereas
That's a good point.
I may have looked at an object moving or something right. Like, but you look at something moving, and if you don't know that, there could be a way that happens, and could happen, in our physical world, your brain may shut it down, and just say that didn't happen. That's happened to us, but we have to check each other. It's like, did that just happen? Yeah, yeah, it did. Oh, good. Okay, because I thought I just was seeing things.
Wasn't just me.
But
Uh,
that is the bigger question, though. As far as your belief in a quote unquote afterlife, do you have a more a stronger belief in that there is something beyond the physical existence?
I do. Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. I think I don't know exactly what it is,
Right.
what it entails, but I definitely think so. I've seen, experienced things that, I do believe to be the personality or the energy of people still in this
Right.
physical world or interacting with this physical world. But does that mean it's necessarily the person we think, or a person at all, or is it
Yeah.
some sort of interdimensional type of and other dimensions seem more and more likely the more that
I agree with
time
you.
moves on and we understand. Yeah. And anytime any of us talk to real scientists, they're always like, it's another dimension. If what you're seeing is real, this is another
Yep.
dimension. Like, you're not dealing with this magic paranormal stuff. It's You're seeing something interdimensional somehow. They don't know how it would get here, but most of them do
I
believe
agree with
that
that
there are many
100%. I
dimensions.
got to show something, Steve, before I know I appreciate you doing the hour, but I got to pop this up here. There it is. A Life with Ghosts, A Life with Ghosts by Steve, his new book
Oh,
that's coming
nice.
out. And when is that coming out? Available for
Thank you, sir.
pre-order.
Yes.
Could you
Oh,
talk a little bit about the
thanks.
book
Oh, that's good.
before you go?
Sure. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's a pre-order, and started working on it quite some time ago, uh, and it's a lot of, not necessarily all of my favorite places or hauntings, but poignant experiences that I've had at these places that always seem to do with the paranormal, of course, but uh, and it's a deeper look into a lot of the things that I've experienced, and also part a way to memorialize, not even memorialize, but remember, that it's not just these ghosts that we're interacting with, but also uh, there were people, with
Yeah.
lives, with experiences, loves, losses, all of that. And honestly, also, you realize that I might be learning a thing or two also.
Imagine
Like,
that.
let me learn what not to do because it didn't work out for this guy. Like, or so you by investigating the dead, quite honestly, you're learning about how to better your own life and future. I'm not going to do what she did. That's for sure.
But
So,
it's funny, but it's
but
true. I mean, unfortunately, and we were talking about this before. Paranormal means you're dealing with people that aren't here anymore. These are people that have passed. So whoever you're talking to, whatever you're dealing with, whoever you're dealing with, they lived a life, they had a story, things happen, good or bad to them, and that's kind of
The
it's
makeup
more
of it
than just
all.
going into a building in the dark. These are people who've been here before
Well,
oh
us.
yeah,
I do believe that there's some things that were never human because of what I went through. So I know that you believe that there aren't, but I do. I do believe in I don't know if you want to call it demons or angels, but I do believe in the force of something that's really good and something that's really bad beyond our conception of what it
Hey,
is.
Steve is plugging a book. You don't
sure,
I
need you don't
know.
you don't
sure.
you don't ever
Well,
interrupt a
No,
people
guest.
no,
He's
want
this,
to
this
plugging a
is
know.
it's
book.
People
fascinating.
want
It's
to
true.
know
I agree
you're
with
gonna
that.
have if you're gonna have the book available in November
Of course he is.
at the event.
Oh, I may, yeah. It's hard to forecast that, but I'd like to say yes.
I'm saying yes.
It'll
If
be
we'll
out.
get you to the expo, he's
Yeah,
gonna have tons of them, boxes. You'll buy
yeah.
10 of them. He'll
There's a
have them
big
there.
truck
There'll be
coming full
piles
of
of them.
books.
Yeah. Again, we don't shamelessly plug anything on this live stream except for Steve's book. just so you know.
Oh
So the
gosh.
book itself is about, again, your experiences, places
Yeah,
you've
yeah,
been.
yeah.
Any
Yep.
kind of personal stories in there, or just
Sure. Yeah. There's a little, backstory. It's not a biography or memoir by any
right?
stretch, but there is, of course, for those who may not know, um, who I am or what I do. There is a bit of an intro there that does get into a little bit of my background and even how I met Jay and got involved with the team and that. Just a little bit, a few paragraphs. But then it goes right into the paranormal stuff and what it was like at these places. And also, people may hear about, all of these places we've been as investigators. We're lucky to go to these places, but they don't always get to go there, so delivering that cerebral sort of experience for them of what
Yeah.
it's like to walk through the halls of Waverly
Mm.
Hills or Penhurst or these places that we visit, put that smell in their nose and that sound in their ears and all of that, and as you know, that can be quite intoxicating, all
Oh,
of that. You're
it
like,
is a different kind
you
of
sort of
feeling to go into a building. Like there are times where I don't know about you, but there are times where I like to just kind of wander by myself just to get a feel and a vibe. I don't know. Do you ever do that when you're in one of these kind of locations, or is that not
sure,
something you
yeah,
do?
Yeah. Just
But
get a
we
you get
feel.
do.
that
Oh yeah,
feeling.
absolutely. Yeah.
So
Uh,
I
I mean,
always ask. No, go ahead, Steve. I'll wait.
oh no, please. I like
I
questions.
always ask the guests that come on.
Oh
Um,
boy, I know what
I
this one is.
and Sherry shocked us all with what the nugget she gave us, which was amazing.
But she was named after a horse or a
Yep,
dog.
a
Yeah.
horse.
Yeah.
What is
Sherry was
something
named
out
after
there
a
that
horse.
You
she
didn't know
was
that?
named after a
We didn't know that
horse?
either. We found
Yeah.
that out during our interview.
Yep. I,
Wait, maybe I did. It was a racing horse,
Uh,
wasn't it?
I
yes.
don't
I feel
know,
like I've
but
heard
Yes.
that story. I
sort
did
of,
hear
Yes.
that
yeah.
story.
Yeah, a
Okay.
family horse, a racing horse. So, is there a little nugget of something that people would not be aware or be surprised about you? Anything?
I know this one.
Hmm. I
A hobby, something you used to do, anything?
I used to paint. I don't know if that like
Oh,
oil paint and that. Not many people know
oh,
that. I think Tango may be the only one of the only people in my modern life who know that. He's seen a few actually. But, um, yeah, in my teenage years, young teen, 12, 13, 14, that sort of thing. Maybe
No,
even
that's
younger.
not
that,
quite
But
a I was named after a horse story.
that's true. It's still embarrassing though. Oh gosh.
do you paint anymore, or you just don't do it anymore?
No, no. I haven't done it in long time.
Wow,
Yeah.
Well, P-
Picasso here.
Oh,
Steve, I can't thank you
yeah.
enough, man. I mean, this means the world to me that you would even take an hour to do this with us. I
Yeah.
mean, like I
Please.
said, you're the genuine article. We love having you at the expo. We can't wait to see you there again. And he
Thank
will
you.
have. He said he just told me 50 cases are now being ordered to be in Jersey on November, so it will be there, and he'll be. If he doesn't, I
Nice.
will. All right.
Do it.
Thanks, Steve.
Good night,
Appreciate it.
Steve.
Thank
Thank
you.
Have a
you.
good night.
Take care.
Take care.
There you go. Man, I can't top that, can you? I
No.
mean, great guy, humble guy for, the amount of time that they've been doing what they're doing, and they really were, pioneers. They really were. Taps were pioneers. There was no paranormal TV. There was other shows, but I mean, they made it, possible for every show that came after them. A lot of shows that you see kind of do what they do in their own different way here and there, but I mean, they were definitely the guys who started it all, and
They're the blueprint.
it was really great having him on. I hope you guys enjoyed that because I enjoyed it a lot. He's just a great guy. You want to say your good nights?
Everybody, please take care of yourself. Stay healthy, stay well, and please, please be kind to each other. It matters. It makes a huge difference.
And remember,
Good night,
we
everybody.
just don't shamelessly plug anything
You.
here. We just wouldn't do it. We're not going to do it. We're not like that at all. We are not. All right, guys.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks for
Thank
watching.
you.
We'll see you
Good
soon.
night.
Take care.